Hello, you're probably thinking of studying abroad, but you're not really sure where to go. Well, Glasgow might be the place for you, or it might not. I'm here to tell you my experience so that you can decide for yourself. My home university is California State University, San Marcos, and I spent a semester abroad in the University of Glasgow from January to May in 2022, and in August I spent a couple weeks doing summer classes at the Royal Conservatory of Scotland. And my major is also visual and performing arts. So our story begins around 2013 when I first discovered the British sci-fi TV show Doctor Who. And it was my first time watching a British TV show, and from there I just became really interested in British TV and the UK in general. But studying abroad is a weird concept to a 13-year-old, and I didn't really know what it was, but I always kind of had the feeling that I eventually wanted to go there. So fast forward to 2020, I was in college and thought to myself, I could actually do that. And then COVID happened, so that didn't happen. So 2021 comes around and I'm finally able to study abroad. And I know that I want to go to the UK, but I'm not really sure where. So if it weren't for the title being a dead giveaway, you would have probably thought, well, classic American goes to London. That's what I thought too. But London's kind of scary to a little American who's never left the US before. So I'm looking at my university study abroad page and I see the University of Leeds and the University of Roehampton and a few others, but none of them really vibe with me. So then I go to ISA, or the International Study Abroad website, and I look at the UK and they have some stuff in Scotland, which I'd never really considered before, because a lot of time when people think of the UK, they just think of England. But so the University of Glasgow had the most beautiful campus, but they've also filmed some stuff there. So it kind of ticked off all of my boxes. So I kind of committed to Glasgow. So from there I did some research and looked into the city and watched some videos of people who studied there and just walking tours and seeing generally what the city is like. And there were also some videos of celebrities who had lived there or come into the film industry from Glasgow. And it was a bit smaller and less intimidating than London. And the general opinion was that Glaswegians are generally nice people, so things were looking good. So the process of actually getting there. Probably one of the first things I did was pay for the program, and it wasn't the cheapest program out there, I have to say. And then there was paperwork. Loads and loads of paperwork. You had to get your course approved by your home university. You had to do a checkup at the doctors and have them sign a form. You had to get your visa documents together and get a direct flight so that you don't have any problems trying to get your visa if you land in a different country first. It's lots and lots of documents, but now it's finally over. So I am finally on my flight to Glasgow, and I arrive in Glasgow, and then I discover that I do not have my visa. I didn't get a stamp, and when I first came to the UK, I landed in London, and then I flew to Glasgow. And in London, I asked the people working there if I should get my visa there, even though my final destination is Glasgow. And they said, nope, you should get it in Glasgow. And then I got to Glasgow and just somehow was about to walk out of the airport, and I didn't have my visa. So we called some people there, and apparently I didn't technically need it because I was only going to be there for 6 months, and it's only if you're there longer than 6 months that you really need one. So luckily it was okay, but for everyone else, the first time you land in the UK is when you should get your visa. Alright, now the visa stuff is done, and I am finally about to experience Glasgow. So let me give you the overview on Glasgow. It's cold, it's rainy, it snows in January, it's Glasgow. Just make some tea and buy some extra blankets and walk around, you'll warm right up. No, Glasgow's amazing, honestly. It's got a lot going for it. It's got this grid system, which actually inspired the design of New York. People are friendly and witty, and it's just beautiful. It's got a mix of Victorian and modern architecture, lots of nice warm sandstone. It's also been the filming location for Outlander. They filmed some of that at the cloisters at the University of Glasgow. They also filmed some of Batman there at the Necropolis and some of Batgirl. And there was also a film being shot there while I was there called Borderland. Not sure if that's out yet, but it should be coming out soon. And Glasgow is also cheaper than London. And a quick tip, if you don't have tap for your card, like that little Wi-Fi symbol on your credit card, make sure you get it because they use it a lot in the UK and it's primarily contactless there. You don't really use much cash. Also, don't try to use Scottish pounds in England because they're weird about that. They shouldn't be because legally it's the same, but they're just weird about it. But anyway, there's lots to do for free and it's very easy to get around. So how do you get around? Well, you can take the bus, you can walk, you can take the subway, not the sandwich place subway, like the train subway, although there is a station where there are two subways next to each other, both the sandwich place and the train station. It's kind of funny. Also, get a subway card, like for the train, not the sandwich. It'll save you a lot of money. There's also the ScotRail, which will take you pretty much anywhere you need to go in Scotland. And there's always a good old-fashioned black cab. Okay, but what's there to do in Glasgow? Well, there's lots to do in Glasgow, and a lot of it is for free. They've got museums, castles, cinemas. Literally, like, they have the tallest Cineworld. At one point, it was the tallest one. And they've also got the GFT, the Glasgow Film Theatre, which you can get a great discount at if you're a student. There's also candlelit concerts at the Oranmore venue. There's thrift shops. Some of my favorites are G12 and one called Duds. And they've got a very intense dance called a Ceilidh. And of course you got pubs, clubs, and pub quizzes. Kelvin Grove Park is also literally amazing. It quickly became one of my favorite parks. They also often sell 99 with flake there in the park, even when it's winter, which is bizarre, but it's actually really fun to have ice cream in the cold. Even though it was January and I was freezing. Now here's the burning question. Where do I get food in Glasgow? Well, my friends, you've all heard of haggis, but what you really need to try is Iron Brew. Seriously, it's like my favorite drink and I miss it a lot. But if you really want haggis, get a full Scottish breakfast and get some black pudding and a tatty scone to go with it. Shortbread is also fantastic, and they've got this cool place for afternoon tea called the Willow Tea Rooms, and you've also got Mother India and Bibimbap, which is a great Korean place. I highly recommend the Jjajangmyeon. They got Bread Meets Bread for burgers. Paisano's is literally the best pizza you will ever have in your life. Tinderbox was also one of my favorite cafes. And Barbarito's basically your Chipotle there. If you want Chipotle, they only have that in London in the UK as far as I'm aware. And you've also got to have one of Greg's vegan sausage rolls. They're just so good. And they've got lots of other good vegan options there in Glasgow as well. So let's talk about the University of Glasgow. Overall, I'd probably give the program 4 out of 5 stars because there was a bit of a visa and course issue. But one of the great things was the resident director. Her name was Elena White, and she's basically your guide while she's there. And she tells you all the things that you should do and all the things that you shouldn't do. Like this peace sign, for instance. Don't do it backwards because that's like basically the middle finger there. Yeah, don't do that. So they do give you good cultural preparation. And there's lots of fun excursions, like we went to the Isle of Skye. But I wouldn't really say that the dorm was the best. But we'll talk about that later. So the courses overall, I would give a 3.5 stars. So here's kind of when things get a little bit negative. So I briefly mentioned that you have to get your courses approved. Well, I did do that, but strangely, when I got there, I got this paper and it said that all of my courses were not being offered. So I had to quickly have a meeting with several of the staff at the University of Glasgow and find the next ones that were open. And the ones that I was able to take were Memory, TV and the Archive, TV Analysis, Climate Change, and Intro to Scottish Culture. The first two were more so theory-based rather than production-based, as in you did a lot more talking about things rather than creating things yourself. And I'm personally a very production-driven person, and that's what I want to do as a career. But the degree that they offer is film studies, so that's what they teach. I did really enjoy the discussions that we had in class, and I also joined a TV club while I was there, which was a lot of fun. The articles were also really interesting to read, even if they were kind of long and really wordy, especially because some of them mentioned Doctor Who, which was really fun for me because that basically never happens back at home. And a lot of the grade was based on assessments, like papers and things, or exams, which is typical of the UK. I kind of lucked out because I chose courses that didn't have any exams. I had a few quizzes, but I didn't have like the big deal exams. So a lot of my grade was based on essays. The grading is also definitely not as easy as it is in the US. And that's pretty much down to you have to be very thorough with following the exact instructions that they give you and be very concise while meeting the word limit and all that. The climate change course was probably my least favorite one because a lot of it was just PowerPoint presentations, and there were like 4 people teaching it, 2 of which were actual professors, and the other 2 I think were students, which was not a very good experience as a student taking the class because the teaching style varied by a lot, and it was hard to, when you need to contact someone, figure out who you needed to talk to, because sometimes if you emailed someone, you get redirected to talk to someone else. And it was also online, which didn't help. The course just wasn't really for me. But the Scottish Culture course was one of my favorites. I feel it really added to my understanding of Scottish history, which I feel that we don't get enough of world history. In the US, we tend to focus a lot on our own country. So it was really interesting to learn about the country I was currently living in for 5 months. So now to move on to probably the worst section, in which I will complain a lot. There is the dorm. I stayed in the Cairncross dorm, and I will give that 2 stars. So I will start off with the good things. It's a good location, and it's very safe. With that being said, here are the bad things. It was either boiling or freezing, which I'm willing to forgive. It was also noisy, which I'm also willing to forgive. But the one thing that I honestly can't say that I'm willing to forgive is that there were maggots in the bins. There was also hair in the drains that already barely function. Someone also just threw up in one of the showers, and it wasn't cleaned for like a week because the cleaning ladies were so grossed out by it, and I honestly can't blame them. Also, someone just straight up cracked the toilet seat, which I'm not sure how that's done. There was also hardly any toilet paper for like 10 people that were sharing one flat and maybe a few toilets. I also had a lot of issues collecting my mail. I would get a notification that something had been delivered, and I would go down there to collect it, and they would say that it wasn't there. And sometimes I would have to check over multiple days, and at some point it appeared eventually, but I don't know where it was between the time they delivered it and by the time I collected it. I guess they just had to find it. It was like in the ether or something. I don't know. There was also one time where you have to give them your ID in order to collect your stuff, and I gave my ID to someone, and he read it, and he spent like 5 minutes looking for something under the wrong name. I think he thought my middle name was my first name. He was like, "There's nothing for your middle name here." And I said, "That's not my name. My first name is my first name." Something else that was bad was that I didn't know I was going to be sharing a room until I actually got there. There wasn't really much information on which dorm I'd be staying in or whether or not it was a single or a shared room. And what was kind of weird was that there were like 6 people in the program, and only me and my roommate had to share a room. Everybody else didn't, which was, I don't know, kind of weird. But hey, if you don't believe me that Karen Cross is bad, I'm about to read some good old reviews for you. Oh boy, here we go. So at one point, my friend stayed with me and he visited the dorm with me, and here is his review. 1 star. Smells bad as hell. Would rather die than go back into the student kitchen. Genuinely. Does nobody in this godforsaken place know how to clean? Another review by someone else. 1 star. The overwhelming fact of Karen Cross House is that it needs to be completely aired out. I am making efforts to keep my windows and door open, as well as many other doors and windows that aren't jammed shut. One of the bathrooms was also in bad shape when I arrived, and there was a completely mold-infested meal sitting in the study room, which must have been completely neglected over the break. Another review, 1 star. Do not stay here. This place is a scam. Showers did not work. Rooms were dated and staff was not helpful. Made several complaints about the showers not working over the span of the academic year, and nothing was fixed. When my flatmate emailed them about this at the end of the year, the sanctuary staff said that there were no complaints, when I personally had filed at least 5 over the year. Do not stay here. This place is a scam. And 8 people upvoted that review. Here is a student review, 1.4 stars out of 5. Probably the worst place where anyone can stay. You might think it's not so bad, but the reality is that it is extremely expensive for what you get. There are even mice in the walls. But the worst part is the staff. Apparently, there is a warden that judges students and fines them at his convenience. In my case, he made up that on the day of the 7 a.m. fire drills, oh yeah, we had to deal with that, someone from the staff had come to my door and I laughed and I did not open the door. The staff is run by students, so you're actually putting your safety when it regards to fire to 20-year-old students. The internet connection is very poor. There is no cleaning in our flats. We do it ourselves. The stairs are cleaned probably once a month. Hall management is terrible, as the example above shows. Social experience depends on your flatmates. I would have preferred to had found private accommodation, since you can pay half of what you pay in this hall. 1 star value for money, 1 star property management, 1 star social spaces, 1 star internet/Wi-Fi, 4.5 star, 4 stars location, 1 star cleaning, 1 star social experiment. Social experiment? It probably is. 1 star social experience. And if those reviews were not enough for you, I have a message from my group WhatsApp chat for the people that were staying in Karen Cross with me. One of the people there said, "Hey guys, our kitchen is such a mess that literal flies are breeding in our trash. This is a disgusting environment to cook in. There's so many dishes and food scraps left in the sink that water can't even go down the drain. This is a shared space, so please show a shred of common decency and respect for others by picking up after yourself. The kitchen has been gross all year, but actual flies growing in our trash is the breaking point for me." Yeah, it was pretty bad. So, well, the others stayed in Blackfriars, which I could definitely recommend, and it actually kind of made me sad going to Blackfriars because it was so nice. And for that, I think I'm actually going to change my rating from a 2 to a 1 for Karen Cross House. But I do have to say, U of G has a very nice gym. But with that, we are done talking about the dorm and we are moving on to bigger and better things. So let's talk about some other things that I did while I was there. I went to Wales Comic Con in Telford, which is very close to a country called Wales. And I dressed up as Crowley when I went there, and I got to meet David Tennant, who signed my mug, which was very cool. I got to meet Catherine Tate, I got to meet Peter Davison, and I got to meet Paul McGann, who actually gave me a fist bump, who was really cool. Paul McGann was just really cool, honestly. Like, he was one of my favorite people to meet. I also got to work on a short film with some students from a university in London, and we filmed in Chiswick, and I got to be an extra in their film, and I also got to do some behind the scenes photography, which was really awesome. I also took the train a lot of places. I took the train to Telford when I went, and I also basically covered all of the UK except for Northern Ireland. I went to Scotland, England, Wales, and I went to the Republic of Ireland. So places in Scotland that you can get to very easily with the ScotRail. I went to Stirling a lot because some other students in my program were studying there. That's about a 20-minute train ride. I also went to Edinburgh, which was about a 50-minute train ride. I also went to the Isle of Skye, which you can get to via a coach. And I also took some day trips to Paisley and Bathgate just for fun, because they're less well-known places in Scotland, and I kind of wanted to see the less populated areas as well. And in England, I went to London for the first time. I went to Carlisle. I went to Newcastle upon Tyne. And as I said, I also went to Telford. And I also went to Wales. I went to Cardiff, which is about 6 hours from Glasgow to Cardiff. And I also went to Caerphilly, which is really nice. They've got a great castle there. They've got a great castle there. Also went to Lantwit Major and Bridgend, which I cannot recommend for a long and detailed story that I don't have the time for, that I might do if people are interested. And I also went to Ireland. I went to Cork for St. Patrick's Day, and I also went to Dublin, which was great as well. All right, we are moving on to the Royal Conservatory of Scotland. Right off the bat, I will give this 5 stars. And this is because it was honestly an unforgettable experience. I learned so much in 2 weeks and honestly became friends with literally everyone in my classes. It's understandable that so many talented people came out of this drama school. If you didn't know, some notable alumni are David Tennant, Ncuti Gatwa, James McAvoy, and Richard Madden, and I'm sure there's loads more that I'm forgetting. But the 2 courses that I took there was acting for camera and introduction to filmmaking. So the acting course, I would give 5 stars. I've never acted before, and in fact, before this class, I would probably internally combust in various ways if I was asked to do a public presentation. I still kind of do, but I wanted to challenge myself. I figured if I was going to be some kind of director someday, that I really needed to understand how acting works. They say that you never see film or television the same way again after you do acting, and it's honestly so true. I see it completely different now. It was really scary at first, but I gained some confidence from it. Also met so many talented people there and connected with them and just had a lot of fun, really. I learned to fence from an actor named Alex that I met there, who actually learned how to fence from a guy who was on Pirates of the Caribbean, which was insane. He also taught me how to shoot a bow and arrow, and he kind of sounds like Chris Hemsworth, which is funny. We also did some weird games that the teachers taught us. Like, there's one with a potato where you all close your eyes and walk around and there's this one bad potato, and it says bad potato, and if it's near you, then you have to scream and fall down and die. I don't know what they do in Scotland, but that's what they do apparently. It was weird, but it was a lot of fun. My class was taught by a lady named Katie, and she's very good. She's a very good actress, and she's a very good teacher. There was also someone who did some camera work and helped out in the courses, who was called Ali, and he was really cool too. He was the one that I talked about who worked on Batgirl, which should be released. For Ali, we should just release it. Just release it for Ali. We should have a petition for that, honestly. There was also a girl there named Abby, who was probably one of the nicest people I've ever met. And there was also a guy named Cameron who was just really funny and Scottish. So 5 stars. Now to move on to the filmmaking course, which I will also be giving 5 stars. This class honestly taught me more than I have learned in the entirety of my degree. You get to work on all the different roles on a set and learn how it works and how each role is important and how you all work together to create a short film, which is what you do. We reshot a couple of scenes from pre-existing films. We did a scene from Social Network, and we also did a scene from Get Out. You get to work with real actors and dress a set and arrange props and set up your own shot as DOP. And it just reminded me that that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Also, Cromwell and Michael, I will never forget you. So now it is time to reflect. Looking back on it, there were some pretty low lows, but also some really high highs. It's just a good opportunity to challenge yourself and put yourself out there for new opportunities, and you get to meet new people and go places you'd probably never go otherwise. And you just learn about a culture different from your own. Learning about a different culture actually kind of taught me some things about my own culture, and you don't really understand how other countries see your culture until you leave and discover what it's like looking at it from an outside perspective. And it just, in general, led me on a different path in my life and led me to new opportunities in my life. So just some more general info. So this past semester I worked for ISA at CSUSM, and I did a shorter version of this presentation and actually came up with like a whole PDF that has a much shorter version of this video as a bunch of information, and feel free to look at it. And in fact, if you skipped a lot of this video and somehow ended up here, feel free to just look in the description for the PDF. Also, please do leave any questions for me in the comments. I might answer them in another video if there are enough of them. I feel like this video is already too long. Well, that's me. Be sure to leave a like on this video or subscribe. I don't really know what I'm doing with this whole YouTube thing, but I've heard that it works when you say things, so I'm saying them. So I will see you later. See, it's an end slate because it's at the end. I'm not even syncing the audio in post. It's done in OBS. Okay, yep. Goodbye. My hair's just gonna get worse and worse as this goes on.
No. No. Stop it. Get some help.